It's New Year's Eve. This is the SBP Podcast, the voice of mobile film. Episode 11 is the last one of the year. And I am your host, Susy Botello. Happy New Year to the world. We did something special for this podcast. We went to a local coffee shop in San Diego, and we invited our friend Aaron. He's the co-host of the Hall H Show podcast, to end the first year of our podcast. Instead of explaining his role with mobile filmmaking, we'll just begin our discussion. Hi, how is everybody doing? We're over here at Les Stats Coffee and Tea here in San Diego. It's really nice and loud in here. We're live. No, we're not. But we're alive. I'm here with, this is really exciting for me. This is the person that sort of inspired me to start my own podcast. This is Aaron Nabus. Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah, it sort of rhymes with caboose, so yeah, that's pretty good.
Nabus. I've never actually said his last name. And Aaron is the co-host of the Hall H Show podcast. That's hall-h.com, which is not affiliated, connected, or associated with Comic-Con International.
No, it's not.
Got that from the footer of your website. Aaron and his co-host, Alex Benedicto, interviewed me back in November of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was right after the elections.
That's right.
We're talking about the global elections for President of the United States. And then he also interviewed me right before our film festival this last year, also with some of the filmmakers. And but I'll let him share who he is and what his podcast is about and everything. And then we'll go into why I'm interviewing him.
Hey, everybody in SBP Podcast land. Thanks for having me, Susy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Basically, the Hall H Show podcast, you know how you are the voice of mobile movies?
Mobile phone.
Mobile phone.
Mobile films.
Mobile films, yeah. Sorry. The voice of mobile films. We are the voice of Artist Alley at conventions. And I can kind of consider myself an Artist Alley evangelist. So basically what that means is when you go to, say, San Diego Comic-Con, for instance, it's such a huge, like, monster of an event.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably the top, pop culture destination when it comes to conventions.
And that's where we met.
Yes.
It was like two peas in a pod type thing, right?
So, yeah, well, we'll go back to that when we first met. But basically, when it comes to the Hall H Show, when I was a kid, when both my co-host Alex and I were kids, when we would go to Comic-Con, it would be all about comic books and artists, the creators.
Did you guys know each other back then, too, when you were kids?
No. We met in college.
Oh, cool. Kids.
Yeah. I guess you're still kids back then, but... like my first comic convention or San Diego Comic-Con was back in like maybe 1995. His was probably earlier, maybe in the earlier 90s, like maybe 90 or so.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and he would sneak in, it was that small. You can just sneak in, but it's so different, compared to today.
Yeah.
So when we were kids, it was all about the creators and the comic books. Obviously now with the influence of Hollywood, like, if anybody's, alive right now, they know that Marvel and DC are making movies now. And so it's all about, which is expected. When Jack Kirby, if you think of Marvel, you think of Stan Lee. That's what people automatically think about. But there's also Jack Kirby. And there's some people, like my friend Arlen Schumer. Arlen Schumer is he's a big comic book historian, especially when it comes to Silver Age comic books.
Yeah.
He would say that pretty much just take Stan Lee out of the equation, and it's all about Jack Kirby.
Oh.
Jack Kirby's the main creator when it comes to Marvel. But a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. Well, I always thought Stan Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So and especially this year, this year specifically is Jack Kirby's centennial. So there's a lot of celebration out there to celebrate Jack Kirby's life.
Wow.
I implore your audience to look up Jack Kirby. But seeing as how the shift in comic conventions, the attention has gone to the blockbuster mainstream type, events, movies, television. For us, when you start up a podcast or a blog, you sort of have to find your own niche.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be like everybody else out there, right?
Right.
So when Alex and I first thought about, because I was working up in Orange County doing the whole corporate thing, right? So when I moved back down to San Diego, we were hanging out more often, just to, I was going to say, shoot the blank, but, just to hang out.
Well,
and
you
catch
had a
up.
lot in common with the comics that you had, yeah.
Yeah, so we would meet up and just catch up on things, and then he told me that, oh, you know what? I have hall-h.com. And for those of or your audience who are familiar with San Diego Comic-Con, Hall H is where they sort of showcase all the exclusive content.
Exhibits and everything.
Like when when Avengers has a new movie come out, they have all the actors come out and they have a panel at Hall H because that's their biggest exhibit hall. Basically, they can house like 6,000 people. So that's where the reputation of Hall H comes from. It's from these big events of San Diego Comic-Con showing the exclusive content before anywhere. So
the longest lines are for Hall H.
Exactly. You have people camping out for days.
Yeah, especially this year.
Yeah. So we kind of thought. I kind of thought, whoa, you have hall-h.com? I'm like, there's no way that we can compete with Collider or Nerdist. So we kind of thought, you know what, we're gonna use the notoriety that Hall H is known for. We're gonna flip the script.
Yeah.
We're gonna be disruptors, and we're gonna put the focus back on the artists, the creatives. So our focus is Artist Alley.
Wow.
So that's what we've been doing for the past 3 years, since 2014, and we're starting to get a reputation as supporters for independent creators.
Yeah, I believe the future, the trendiest future is around artists, not just in comics and things like that, but also art itself, and in movies, the independent filmmakers,
right.
they're the artists.
And when we say artists, it's a general term. It's not just illustrators.
Of course.
And it's one reason why we've had you on the show a few times, is because we love the creative spirit that you bring, especially from the independent creator standpoint.
Yeah.
We celebrate that.
Well, yeah, and in mobile film, it's so new, and like what I was telling you, I think in one of your podcasts too, that it's creating its own genre because, it is a disruptor in the industry in itself, and so there are people experimenting with what you can do. And then you have virtual reality and AR coming out, the 360, and all these things that people are using for movies. But those ideas are really being experimented with more with the smartphone filmmakers and that community of independent filmmakers in general, where they're willing to try out new things, So, that's where the art comes in. And there's a connection. There's no way there's no connection. We were actually looking for more cosplayers to make movies, and more superhero movies, on the mobile phones. I think I'm going to have to create a new category just to give that push in our film festival for
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah. Because we had, as a matter of fact, when you came to our film festival, when we talked before that, because, Aaron played a part in our film festival. He was the media guy. He was Mr. Social Media there, connecting the festival with our Facebook page. And he was posting all the photos and everything. And so we were talking about doing that, and I mentioned to him some ideas about including cosplayers into our film festival. and then share what happened, who you brought.
One of my friends, Tracy, she goes by Hot Nerd Girl online. We've known each other for a few years, and she's based out here in San Diego. And I kind of thought it would be awesome if she could like come cosplay with her cosplay group, Star Wars Steampunk Universe. Because I thought that'd be such an awesome sight to see on the red carpet for Susy for your event.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, it was so awesome.
It was such a treat, And then we sort of choreographed it there, because we had, I think it was like 9 or 10, I can't remember how many filmmakers now that came out, and so there was like practically one cosplayer from that group that was able to attend that we could match up with each one of the filmmakers. So they each escorted a filmmaker on the red carpet.
So thanks again to Tracy and Star Wars Steampunk Universe.
Oh, most definitely. They rock. And so what I wanted to, we have a little bit of a theme today because this is our year's end podcast. This is not our last podcast, but we're saving this one for the year end, basically.
I can't believe a whole year has passed by already.
Well, I know, right? It's amazing. Share a little bit about how we met.
Oh, I believe it was 2016. It was San Diego Comic-Con. I was looking at the program, and I noticed that there was a panel at San Diego Comic-Con about making a movie on your smartphone. And I was like, wow, that is amazing, because I remember, for those of you who watched the TV show House, I think we talked about this on a previous podcast. I remember that they had made a few episodes with the Canon, the 5D Mark II, I believe. So the fact that you can start, like the technology has caught up to enable smartphones to do, 1080 and now, 4K. It's like amazing. So, and I think smartphones are an awesome way to globally get people, connected. Because the barrier to entry is that much. It's less. It's just. Coincidentally, I remember I was talking to my friend, and we had a podcast down at the San Diego Library, and you know how there's a homeless population down there, right?
The one downtown?
Yeah, downtown. Yeah. And we were driving, and I had remarked, oh, it's interesting. It's weird. There's some homeless community, and some of them were on a smartphone.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, it's just a weird juxtaposition. You just don't really think about it, and.
A long time ago, I met this. He was around 20 years old or something, and this is back when I was starting my film festival, and I was recruiting filmmakers off the street practically, and I actually came back with an old iPhone that I had for him to use because I wanted him. He was talking about he had developed a community of homeless young people that were living under a bridge or something like that. Yeah. Okay. And he said, yeah, but my phone doesn't have the video. This was back in 2010. And I said, well, no, it wasn't an iPhone. It was another cell phone that I had, a Nokia or something, but it had the video. And I said, you know what? I'll give you my phone, and you can use that, to make a little documentary and share your story. And I didn't see him again, unfortunately. I don't know what happened to him. But, yeah, it was about that. It was like, well, even a homeless person has a phone. Most cell phones now, and now they're smartphones, have video. Mm-hmm. And now they pretty standard for them to come with at least HD.
Right.
And
then I remember a lot of my relatives in the Philippines. Yeah. They don't have telephones, but they have smartphones. That's how they stay connected.
Yeah.
Or
laptops. You go to places. I remember a friend in Africa who was saying a lot of people here don't have laptops, or iPads or anything, notebooks and stuff, because they're too big and you can't conceal them, and they're worried about there's a lot of theft, and they can't just leave stuff behind like that will, people will break into somebody's house and steal more often. I mean, I guess that's a big deal for them. So they said he would rather have a phone, and so would his friends, because they can check their email, their social media, and take photos and do everything on that one small unit. So.
Right. And so when I saw your panel at San Diego Comic-Con, I was like, I have to go check this out. This is an incredible opportunity. So my schedule had just worked out that we were able to attend your panel.
Yeah.
So, and we've kept in touch ever since then. And
well, yeah, you went out on Twitter after that. I didn't know who you were still. I remember seeing you guys after I met you. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, those guys, But then Aaron went on Twitter and said, he mentioned our panel and said, this was awesome. I guess you found us on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, somebody tweeted about our panel. How awesome is that? And I followed you and I retweeted. And, the tweets and the retweets, that's kind of like how you start connecting with people on Twitter.
Right.
And then from there, I think you also, you went around, Instagram and then Facebook and things like that. We started connecting, and then we started opening up the conversation. And then when he invited me to the podcast, I was like, oh my God, I've never done a podcast before. I don't know. Yeah.
And that was a 2-hour podcast, right?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever been on your podcast where it hasn't turned into 2 hours. We're going to try not to do that here. I keep saying that. So.
Yeah, a lot of our early podcasts were like 2-3 hours. It's just because,
it's so in depth. I mean, it's such a real hot topic in a way.
Well, I mean, once you start a conversation and then you sort of start connecting and you start to get to know your guest a little bit more, and I don't know, it just sort of organically just evolves,
Yeah, because we really had not, we spoke on the phone very briefly before that first podcast. I barely knew you. I was really nervous because I wasn't sure what to say or how I would sound. I've never really liked the sound of my voice once it's recorded. But, just like I never liked seeing myself in a video or having photos of me, I've had to get used to it. Mm-hmm. But, and then I listened to the whole 2 hours. And I was like, okay, I could get used to, the whole podcast culture in a way.
Because here we are.
Well, because it's not like radio. Radio, most of it is very scripted, and I did that in college. It was part of the media communications major, and you had to program in the ads and things like that, and everything was very timed and very scripted, really. Mm-hmm. And you had to leave room in for the news. Someone would come in and read the news, briefly, periodically. But podcasts are so much more personal, and they are more conversational, And so it is kind of like getting to know you, getting to know each other. And the world is so ready for that, with social media, I think,
Definitely.
too. So I wanted to do this podcast because a lot of the filmmakers that are all over the world, they don't always make it to San Diego to our film festival, and the ones that do, even, we'll interview them, with a phone camera, of course, and do a little short video interview. But it's a little bit of it's tough to do during a film festival, compared to just sitting down with them. They're at home or wherever, and we're connecting, on Skype and doing the podcast that way, and that's where things get really, really cool. And the cool thing about podcasts is you could listen to them in your car. You could listen to them while you're, washing your clothes.
Working out,
right? Or reading, even reading and you could do all kinds of things, or working on your graphics, right? On the computer and shrink that down and listen to it. It's pretty awesome. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about before this turns into an hour,
I was trying to stretch it out a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's awesome. is the film festival, because Aaron was in our last film festival, and we talked about the cosplayers and stuff. But I wanted to know more about what your experience in coming to that film festival, like to seeing those movies on the big screen, because they were shot with phones, and meeting the filmmakers and all that.
I think for me, while I enjoyed watching the movies on the big screen,
Yeah.
and I was totally impressed because for me, I'm a big supporter of what you're trying to do. But I'm not particularly shy or anything, but I'm more reserved. And when I first started the podcast, I wasn't sure how it was really going to go. But as I started to do more and more of it, like I started to enjoy it, you know. And the whole, connecting with people and hearing their stories and seeing their perspectives on different things. That's what intrigues me. And so when I was at the International Mobile Film Festival, I loved meeting the filmmakers and just talking to them, getting to know them over the course of 2 days. I was, and now we're Facebook friends with a lot of them now.
Yeah.
So. And it's nice seeing, what they're up to, because you had someone from Germany, Maite, and Iris from Canada. You had Brian from Australia. It's just incredible,
Yeah.
And it is a global, community.
Yeah, and actually, Brian, speaking of Brian, that's what he was saying too, is how well we connected with each other there in that environment. I've been to film festivals before where the audience doesn't really connect with the filmmakers as a standard. And I can understand, if, like, I don't know, Tom Cruise or something like that, he's like, no, keep me away from the audience, or something. I don't even know if he would do that. I'm just assuming, But for the cool thing about these film festivals, especially while they're small like that, is like, well, even at Comic-Con, right? Where the stars, the big name stars are a little bit secluded, and, they don't want to be in a mob, you know what I'm saying? So in a film festival environment like this, the networking part is really important, and to keep the filmmakers close with everybody. And then we did the Q&A, and there was really no huge distance between the panel on the Q&A and where the audience was.
Right.
So you're a part of that, like, really. And so what were some other things that you'd like to point out about the film festival that you liked?
Well,
don't tell me anything you didn't like, obviously.
Well, just the variety of films. You had, it's just incredible to see what somebody would think of as a story or a concept, and how they would sort of bring it to fruition using a phone. Obviously, the same, precepts and things you bring as a filmmaker apply, but technically, there are some different things you need to sort of take into account. Just, I don't know. Iris is what was it called?
How I became a movie theater murderer.
Right. It was like, first of all, that concept,
right.
And second of all, just how he executed it, and and all the span with it's about 5 minutes, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I was just impressed, and also the Figment.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. That was such an incredible. That's like, first of all, being a graphic designer, that movie, the beginning and end title credits, was just amazing. The attention to detail, I love that movie. Even though the subject matter is really dark, just as the attention to detail, the high quality.
And the music.
Yeah, the music.
The music in the beginning reminded me of the opening of Lord of the Rings or something. You know what I mean? Just because it had that fairy tale-ish kind of epic movie coming on.
Right.
To
me, that's like something that I would probably try to aim for in terms of just like I said, attention to detail, and this is just the beginning and end title credits, because being a designer, I love a lot of Saul Bass's stuff.
Yeah.
And Saul Bass, if audience, I'm sure our audience knows about that, about him, but he's a designer who worked on a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's movies. For me, I think one of the things that sort of pushed me to graphic design was Saul Bass's beginning and end title credits for West Side Story.
Oh,
So if you watch West Side Story, I mean, as a person, I think I might have been like in 6th grade, but that movie made an impression on me. I mean, obviously for now, Natalie Wood, right? But also for the beginning and end title credits, because I could just watch that movie and just go to the beginning and go to the end and just watch those sequences. Wow. So they're just so badass, you know?
Yeah, there's been a few movies like that. I can't remember. I'm trying to think about the name of the...
Well, the next one that sort of in its sort of evolution and lineage would be Kyle Cooper's Seven. So Seven is well known as having awesome beginning and title credits.
Well, I like it when their beginning and the end credits are almost like it's showcasing something on its own. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm trying to...
They're pretty much like movies in itself.
Yeah, and there were some of them that are like music videos all by themselves, and they're incorporating different images and like Sin City type of...
I mean, they're so important because they can potentially set the tone for the whole movie.
Oh, I know. And the whole point is to keep people engaged instead of, all right, it's over, I can feel the credits coming on, get up and go away. And that's also the concept of, you know, having an Easter egg at the end, you know, which is now common. And
well, just to go back to the movies in your film festival, and it's also interesting to see.
Oh, that's right.
It's also interesting to see like what's influencing people in different parts of the world. Like in Australia, there's a big suicide, thing going on, and a lot of the movies, deal with that subject matter.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. It's sad, but it's interesting to see that perspective.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about Express. It expressed that in a really unique way. And I think his film was also very short. I think it was like only 3 minutes or something like that, too. And that's the whole point where this is coming through, where it's really giving us... There's no time... I think it takes more skill to showcase a story and put out a message with something that short as compared to, you have 2 hours to really explain the whole thing. And that goes into it. Also, the cinematography on what you're going to keep and how you're going to cut the film and everything has a lot to do with it, too. But really interesting. Anything else you want to say about the film festival? I mean, did you... outside of the red carpet and all that, when you were watching the films, I was told by somebody, every single film was actually pretty, even the worst of them, like as if there could be, right, were actually good.
Yeah. I was impressed with the crop of films that you selected for the festival.
Yeah, that's because I know when I first started this, people just thought I was just going to get like birthday parties and real like silly, dorky things. But they're not videos, they're actual films, and they have a purpose. They say something. That's why I have to watch them a few times before I make a decision. Also meeting people. Also, we didn't mention Claudino. He came from Chile.
I was about to mention him, yes.
Oh, you were? Okay, sorry. But Claudino was from Chile. You get, somebody from Germany, somebody from Australia, Canada. And then remember, there was Anthony's daughter. She was 11 years old. Also sharing this platform with all these other filmmakers. And a lot of them were professionals.
And what impressed me about her is that the subject matter of her movie.
Yeah.
I mean, bullying.
Yeah.
I mean, out of all the things that,
she could have selected.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And she did it in a really unique way.
With stop action.
Yeah. So, and then there was Mickey, who was like 82 years old. And
we have the youngest and the oldest.
Yeah.
It's a good little mix right there.
Yeah, I loved it. I really, really, really enjoyed that. Probably more than anybody, because that was my dream in a way, to see that happen. And also, let me see. Now, I'm going to throw this on you. Don't even look at my
Okay.
notes or anything. So you haven't made a film,
No.
right, with your phone.
Not yet.
But I would say that you are a video producer in a way, using your phone, because when you were on the red carpet, you shot. Well, you didn't shoot. It's how we say it. But you interviewed the filmmakers on the red carpet, and you were going to do them for your podcast, and that is going to come out at some point. But you surprised me because you also created videos out of them, and you shot them with your smartphone, and you have been doing that with some of your podcasts where you're shooting your interviews. And I've seen some on your website, on your social media from the Comic Cons themselves. So you're in a way a mobile film producer in a way, right?
Yeah, and well, specifically for your event, we were, obviously we had never really touched video that much, but I specifically told Alex, we should do it with our smartphone because it is a festival about making movies with your mobile device. So I thought it was appropriate that we did shoot video with a smartphone, and it's so much easier too. You have it on there, and you can, just either put some of it on social media really quick, or just download it and edit it later. So we thought it'd be a good idea to do it that way in honor of your show. And so since then, all the other conventions that we've been going to, or maybe if there's an artist signing, we've been doing video, and short video interviews.
But you're doing something which a lot of people are not aware of, which they look around and they're trying to figure out how to do, and that is how to provide great sound using the video on their phone. So how are you doing that?
Well, obviously you need to use a decent microphone.
Yeah.
And the microphone that we usually use to record is the ones that we're using for this podcast.
Yeah. Well, they sound a lot better than mine, I can tell you that. You'll hear it in the podcast. Also, there's something to connect the microphones.
Oh yeah, we do use for our podcast. Susy does a lot of her podcast interviews using Skype. We haven't really gone that road yet, because for me, I prefer having face-to-face conversations. So we connect our microphones to a digital recorder. I'm using the Tascam. I think it's like I forgot the exact model, like a D40 or something like that.
Tascam.
Yeah, Tascam. It's the DR40. There's also, there's other models out there and other makes, but I saw this one because it was affordable. It has two inputs for XLR cables. You can hook it up to a monitor. So it.
You just have one of those, or do you have more? Like sometimes I've seen you with I remember when we did that podcast, there were like 4 or 5 of us.
If we have 4 people, then I'll use a splitter for the XLR cables.
Okay.
So it kind of degrades the sound a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's a podcast, so you don't need to have super, super high quality.
You hardly notice those things unless you're really...
Right. I mean, I notice just
because you're an audiophile, basically.
But for most intents and purposes, for internet, play, it's decent.
And now, how much does something like that cost if somebody wants to get one?
The Tascam is, I believe, it's probably maybe $150.
That's
not bad.
It also has
maybe less than 200.
Its own microphones.
Yeah, they have little microphone inputs on top, but I've used them on a few occasions. They're not that. I wouldn't recommend it. Not even because it picks up when you're holding it.
Yeah.
It picks up the sound of your fingers.
It's very sensitive.
Yeah, it's pretty sensitive.
Wow.
So you need to either have it hooked up to something that's not touching your body, so there's no movement, or just connect XLR cables to the unit, and you should be okay.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Because I've seen things like that are in the hundreds. So that's good. So that's what you do. But so now I'm going to put you on the spot. So are you thinking about making a mobile film at any point?
Yeah. At some point in my life, I would love to.
In your life?
in this life, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would probably maybe be either a documentary of some sort, or I don't know. I'm still mulling over some other ideas. In the course of doing my podcast, the Hall 8 Show, interviewing all these different creators, it's been interesting, getting to hear, their journey, what they do. And I mean, one reason we did the podcast is to help put the spotlight on them.
Right.
But it's also, in a way, to sort of get ideas for us. Because for myself, I want to write something, like either a comic book or a short story, and just develop it, as either make it into a show or something like that. But I do want to write something, and talking to all these independent comic book creators and seeing how they go from start to finish, go from start to Kickstarter to having their end product. It's like it's incredible to hear how they do it, and of course they're all talented to begin with, and I haven't really touched or really gone down the path of a writer yet, but it's something that I've been toying with in the back of my mind, and I definitely want to do it.
Well, one thing I learned when I did video production since 1998. I just totally aged myself, but I was in college, okay? But when I was doing that, the one thing that I realized, and this is very educational, why, I try and get in touch with schools and, for kids, to show them that there is a big difference. I mean, it's great that, a child can learn how to write an essay and do research that way. But when they write something down and they turn in that essay, most likely they're going to forget about it. Where in a documentary, and it's even been my own experience, you learn a lot from interviewing people and researching whatever it is that you're doing your documentary about. And then you have to capture B-roll, other video images and things like that to show while you're interviewing somebody that's connected to what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And that process in itself is highly educational. You don't forget. Picture yourself, you got to call the plumber, right? You don't know anything about plumbing, but you got to call the plumber. So you can either show him where the kitchen is and where to fix it and what the problem is and walk away, or you can hang out. And most people will hang out. And you're talking to the plumber, and the plumber is under the sink, but he's talking, and he's sharing things, and you're asking him questions, and he's sharing more information, and you're asking him more questions about, and you must get this a lot in your job, and, and blah, 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 and he's telling you things. And all of a sudden, about copper fittings, some of the, you know things about plumbing from that interview, which is an interview with a plumber, and now you know more about plumbing than you can ever need to know, right? Because of that one conversation interview with that plumber. You get to do a documentary about plumbing now. Right. and that's why I think it's very educational. And the podcasting, and me, even over the years with the film festival itself, I mean, when I have conversations with filmmakers making movies with films and things like that, I get to learn a lot from that process. So you get to learn that way, and I would imagine that if you did a documentary, I mean, you could already start doing that by, you have interviews, but to add to that some of the backstage stuff, right, of what they're going through, even setting themselves up for, going to a Comic-Con event, exhibiting, and all that, right? Mm-hmm. And you can put all those pieces together and create a documentary.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny you mentioned Comic-Con, but I mean the working title in my head that I had was it'd be called I Am Comic-Con.
Oh, cool.
So and it wasn't either be like one.
You do it like Ozzy Osbourne. I am Comic Con.
Exactly. Maybe I can get him to perform it. But yeah, because there's all sorts of different people that come to Comic Con for different reasons.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a content creator.
Yeah.
There's cosplayers. There's
I love the cosplayers.
Yeah. There's people in the artist alley, as I mentioned earlier. You have even just maybe taking into account hearing the perspective of the people who are behind the scenes.
Yep.
People that work the panels. The vendors. I don't know, but there's different perspectives that you can sort of.
We should hang out next year because I interviewed with just by having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I interviewed some of the cosplayers with my phone and everything and did a little video on that.
I remember.
But aside from that, I was talking to the people working there as well, from security, volunteers, and just anybody because I can't cross paths with people without having conversations. It's really hard. I even sat down somewhere to charge my phone for a little bit, and I was sitting next to this guy, and we had an entire conversation about what it used to be like before all the safety precautions took place, and now,
Yeah, definitely when it comes to cosplaying, they're really being more strict on what you can bring. I mean, like even fake guns or...
And they had to attach... I think this guy had some kind of a sword thing, and he said I had to attach it to my wrist. I was like, I can't do anything now.
Zip tied or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and he said, and I can't. This makes it very hard for me to eat and drink and all this stuff with this thing dangling from my wrist all the time, just because So and the lines, and all those perspectives. It's so much that goes into, and that's true with any event in any situation. Just if we were to walk out on the street right now and talk to different people, you get all these different perspectives about what their day is like, and it's the same day. We're all on this same moment, right? It's pretty interesting. That's awesome. Well, can you think of anything else you might want to talk about real quick?
I guess as it sort of pertains to making movies on a smartphone, I mean, I guess I wanted to ask you, I mean, you've been at the forefront for so many years now. I mean, how do you think the future's going to be like in the next, maybe 3 years?
Well, that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about is the future, because we're ending the year, right? I actually really think it's just going to keep going mainstream. I think more and more people are going to get involved. One of our latest episodes included Brian McLean, who's coming from New York, and he shot an entire feature film using Hollywood actors. And I think we're going to see more of that happening and more people wanting to get involved. If you remember back in the day... when people were publishing books, self-publishing.
So basically, like Hollywood actors won't think that they're slumming it by
Right.
by doing mobile movies.
Exactly. They'll start. It's all about respect. So, like in publishing books, the self-publisher didn't have that much of a respect because you weren't being published by a big publishing house, right? And now you see, a lot of famous people who are self-publishing, and they're okay with that. They're not downgrading their professionalism by self-publishing. And I would say, and that's the same with the music industry. On that flip side, the independent industry, the do-it-yourselves and all that is actually paralleling that as far as like a following is concerned. So that respect, I don't know if I would say that it's devalued respect. I think what has happened is that more people in the arts especially are willing to respect people who are not mainstream. And that's becoming, and that's always been the case, but it's been more underground than on the foreground before, and I think that social media has a lot to do with that, where it's more visible. Where, like punk rock, for example, was an underground thing, if you talk to a bunch of teenagers and young people, you'd know, all these punk bands, but you talk to mainstream people like, who, what, but now it's all up, it's all in the open now, and you can see the following, that these people have. So yeah,
we'll see with the net neutrality. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's scary. We'll see how that works out. I mean, not to say that there's always going to be a way. You know what I mean? Even if that were to happen, we'll find a way, right?
Yeah. I mean, basically, if you do good work and you're authentic, then hopefully, I think your audience will find you.
Yeah. Well, I have faith in people and in what people can do when they connect and when they support each other and what they can create. And I think people can overcome a lot when they join together. But I would say, I wouldn't want to say, let's have mobile filmmaking be the next Hollywood industry. You know what I'm saying? Because, again, that would take away from the whole purpose of it at the same time. I would say more of connecting it together, kind of like in my film festival where you're seeing all the different ages, all the different people from different countries, different genres of filmmaking, all coming together in one platform. And no one disrespected anybody else for however their film turned out, or whether they won or they didn't win, or how they made theirs compared. Look, Anthony is very big on the Android, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm in love with the iPhone, right? But my film festival accepts films from Androids and Windows phones. It doesn't matter if it's a phone. It's got to be a phone. And there's no disrespect between him and myself because you're making your movies on the Android. You're always boasting about Android and things like that when I'm more in the iPhone. And I find that in this community a lot. And I also find that in filmmakers in general, believe it or not. When they get together, they're more oodling about each other's gear and the cameras.
Yeah, going back to your festival, like Anthony was talking to, other filmmakers.
Yeah.
They're looking at the phone. Oh yeah, Anthony was saying, oh, this is how I produce. I don't do post. I do within my phone. I was like, It was really interesting to watch those conversations.
Yeah, and everybody's learning from each other, and everybody enjoys having those conversations about how someone does something different than how you do it, and it opens up your creativity that way and connecting like that. Exactly. So I believe that it'd be great, and I could see it almost happening where the Hollywood, Hollywood, ideally you would say, oh, Hollywood is like a gazillion people. It's not. It really is quite a small niche in a way. There are more people in independent film that are involved in independent filmmaker than are actual celebrities in Hollywood. But there's a huge competition of people trying to get into Hollywood as compared to people trying to get into independent filmmaking.
Well, I think one huge factor also is that when you think of Hollywood, you think of big studios, right?
Right.
That's where the funding comes from.
Yeah.
But in today's world, you have Kickstarter, you have GoFundMe. Yeah. You can get funding for your own projects from the general public. You don't have to go.
But that's the independent filmmaking part, right? That's not the Hollywood.
Well, going back to your statement about how there'd be a lot of other traditional Hollywood people who are going to be starting to do mobile movies.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to wait for Hollywood anymore. The studios.
Yeah, but they still, like for an actor, for example, right? We were talking about the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, right? So they can't, it's a union, right? So they can't really work for an independent film unless that independent filmmaker is able to get the approval from SAG to use those filmmakers, and then they can come on board. Well, that's what Brian McLean did. He was able to work with SAG to include those Hollywood filmmakers. So yeah, those filmmakers would, they also have to be open to it themselves. Obviously, it's not like they're on call for the union, but to have those things merging together to where both the filmmaker, the actor and SAG are willing to come together and say, yes, you can do this, with an independent filmmaker who's working with a phone. That is going to be, and that's already starting to take place, and that's going to be awesome, and again, I think having really good actors, and I say again because I've said it before but not actually here, but having really good actors to convey your story through film is also, it brings up the quality of your film.
Sure.
It's the story, of course, and that's what sells, the actor, and that's what captivates the audience. But if you don't have, I guess in a way it's the balancing of a few different things.
I think it's sort of similar to there's a writer, creator, comic book creator that I interviewed. His name is David Pepose.
Yeah.
You should look him up because if there's anybody that's that are huge fans of, remember Calvin and Hobbes?
Oh yeah.
And remember the movie Sin City?
How do you spell his last name?
Pepose, P-E-P-O-S-E.
Okay.
I think he goes by Peposed on Twitter, but I love his story. It's called Spencer and Locke. It's like sort of like what if he has like this awesome tagline.
Yeah.
It's what if Calvin and Hobbes grew up in Sin City? That's what Spencer and Locke is.
Nice.
So I remember I was at one of his panels, and he said, "Yeah, writing is important, but what brings in what hooks people is the art
and the characters."
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So if I can draw an analogy between that and what you just said, stories are important, but actors visually,
that,
that's as equally or even more so, just because because we're visual people.
Yeah, and it's a really fine line dividing those things. You know what I'm saying? But generally, still, I always preach, if you call it preaching, the story. It's the story. It's the story. But that's like the base. Like the foundation.
Exactly.
I would say it's the story, and then it evolves from there. But you want the quality to be good. Like, for example, when you're building. If you're going to build a Lamborghini, you're not going to put, some cheap engine or some cheap tires on it type of a thing. What makes up the whole... Lamborghini is my favorite. What makes up that whole awesome car, right, is all the individual parts put together being high quality, If you're going to make a gourmet meal, right, and it's seafood, you wouldn't throw fish sticks in there, right? No matter how great that sauce is. So anyways, yeah. All right. We've, I don't want to go into like a whole 2-hour episode. I'm already doing that. But we do have a game that we play on each one of my podcasts. So don't say, "Oh no, this is awesome." So it's called the shout out time.
All right.
Okay, so you have 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
For what? To sing? No, we're gonna watch him dance on a podcast. We're gonna ask you to give a shout out to 20 seconds to whomever, whatever you'd like to say. So do you have something in mind already?
Sure.
Okay, great.
I'm going to wing it, but...
Whoa, you got to wing it.
Yeah.
You're making me hungry. All right, so are you ready? You're set?
I'm set.
Go.
All right, well, since we just celebrated our first year anniversary of our podcast, I got to throw a shout out to Sully from the Nerd Food Podcast, because he gave me so much information for our podcast. I also want to send a shout out to our first guest, Tony Kim, Crazy for Comic-Con. He is the creator of Hero Within. He's shown the light of what you can... Oh, wow, that was fast.
Well, it's 20 seconds. Obviously, you're too slow to name everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not expecting any awards, so I'm not, But just, if I could finish off Tony Kim, he was our first podcast guest. And when it comes to sort of like pop culture and conventions, he's at the forefront of showing us how to sort of build a business around our fandoms.
Oh.
So he's he's a designer like myself.
Yeah.
And he's parlayed that skill set and his love for pop culture and comic books. And he has a line of men's clothing that's officially licensed by DC Comics.
Man, I love stories like this.
Yeah. And he's sort of segueing, sort of doing a collaboration with, I believe, Elle Hoffer Designs. She makes mostly geek fashion for women, and they're starting to collaborate. So there's a
Remember when we were kids? Like if we would have told our parents, well, I did, I want to be an artist. No, you're going to die. You're going to be broke. You're going to be homeless, right?
Yeah.
But if you were a kid and you said, I want to work in the comic books, I want to be a superhero. I want to, you can't shun a kid down for what they dream to do. This is now an industry.
Mm-hmm.
People are actually making a living off this stuff.
Yeah, and if I could just sort of give a few more shout-outs.
Well, fine. Go ahead and cheat your way out of this.
Well, I mean, this is important because of what we do, what I do as a podcaster.
Yeah.
And there's a husband and wife team.
Yeah.
They created their own comic book. And what's important about this story is because when we first started our podcast last year,
Yeah.
and as we were starting to gain,
It's only been a year.
yeah,
Huh?
and as we started to gain a reputation
Yeah.
as a podcast for comic book creators and independent creators specifically, they contacted us. And so me and Alex drove up to LA, and we did a podcast at a Jerry's Deli.
And it was their podcast?
No, they asked to be on our podcast.
Oh,
So
I
I
see.
thought that was incredible because at the time they were doing a Kickstarter for
Yeah.
for their comic book, and the comic book is called Jupiter Jet, and they went through the whole.
I've seen that.
Yeah, they just went through the whole thing. It's been produced by Action Lab Comics, and they had issue number 1 come out this week.
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram, actually.
Yeah.
And I loved it was very eye-catching, the illustration that I saw for that.
Yeah, it's an awesome story, and I mean, we just love connecting and interviewing people like that. Next weekend, I'm going up with Alex with my friend Keithan Jones. Keithan Jones is the owner of the comic book publisher Kid Comics, and he has his own comic book,
Nice.
The Power Knights. He's based down in San Diego, but we're going up to LA. He's having an event in February called Black Comics Day 2018.
Cool.
So we're going up to LA to sort of connect with other Black comic book creators who are going to be participating in this event.
Yeah.
So we're going to do like a big, huge podcast up there.
Why don't you give everybody your is it hallh.com?
Yeah, our website is hallh.com, and our social media accounts are sort of spelled out. It's hallh, DOTCOM. So that's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Yeah, the same one. Okay.
And then I have my own personal one too, which I sort of use as a signal boost
Right.
for Hall H. It's Aaron Nabus. That's AARONNABUS, and I mostly use it as, like I said, as a signal boost for Hall H, doing pop culture and comic book related stuff, but also do a lot of graphic design, social media, marketing type posts as well. So
Yeah. And by the way, you're wearing your International Mobile Film Festival T-shirt,
Yeah.
which is, as soon as you walked in and I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention another thing that we are passionate about. It's called Comic-Con Fit.
Yes.
So I sort of
SD.
manage 3 social media accounts or identities. So hallh.com, my personal one, and also Comic-Con Fit. And what Comic-Con Fit is basically a community of like-minded geeks and nerds who try to be fit year-round so they can go to all these conventions and enjoy themselves. Because I mean, the last thing you want to do is be, not physically fit to do.
Be completely out of breath.
Well, yeah. I mean, people don't realize. Like for myself,
It is.
for the last 2 or 3 years at San Diego Comic-Con, it's like a 4 or 5 day
You
event.
walk miles.
Yeah, I walk 32 miles.
Yeah.
I
mean, just running through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you know what happens too is, so you get to one end, right? And you walk through all the halls, right? From A all the way down to the last one. What is that, like F or something like that?
I lost
By the
count.
stairway or whatever. G, I can't remember.
Well, H is at the end,
G,
so-
F. Yeah, well, whatever. Anyway, Z. And then you get a text from somebody, and they're like, "Hey, we're over here by Hall D."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Ugh." Now you got to walk all the way back over there,
Right.
type of a thing.
Right.
And then once you go inside through the exhibit, you're zigzagging your way through there. So when you look at, I don't know what people have in Androids, I'm supposing Anthony would know, but on your step thing on the iPhone, and you look at the end of the day, you're going, whoa,
I got
just
20,000
want,
steps.
yeah, right. Well, and you can do the miles on there, and you can check, and it's a lot.
Like 10,000 steps is probably roughly 5 miles.
And that's not even counting the blocks that you have to walk to wherever you found parking, because not everybody can afford the $3,000 parking.
And not to mention the after parties. I think
yeah.
I think I might have danced like an extra 10,000, 12,000 steps.
Do you do breakdancing? I love breakdancing.
I'd end up breaking myself.
I can't dance, but I love watching breakdancers. I think that's awesome. You break yourself, huh?
Yeah.
I break everything around it, around me. So, so I guess we should conclude this before it gets to be too long. And so we can keep talking without this.
But lastly, I'm going to give a shout out to you because
Oh.
your creative spirit is infectious, and I love just watching how you're developing the International Mobile Film Festival, and also everything else that you're doing as an advocate for making movies on the mobile device.
Okay, well then in that rate, I'm going to give a shout out to Aaron for everything, and for motivating me and inspiring me to do my own podcast, and doing some trial runs with me here at Lestat's a few times as well. But also because on our couple weekends ago, we went out to the park and Aaron got to shoot. I sort of hired him, sort of.
She paid me with a fish burrito.
Right? Sort of. To do a video, an intro video for our Patreon page. And that is at www.patreon.com SBP Podcast. The reason why I'm saying that is because we're going to sign off here, but I'm going to ask Aaron one really cool question, and that's going to be like bonus for our patrons on Patreon. So you'll have to subscribe in order to do that, and I mean to access that. So we'll sign off now. And thank you again, Aaron.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Bye.
Peace. Cheers. Talk to you later.
That was fun. And so was 2017, right? Don't forget to listen to the bonus episode on our Patreon page, where we talk with Aaron about all you need to know to be ready for Comic-Con in San Diego. It's going to be a lot of tips and a lot of advice from a pro Comic-Con guy, Aaron. After you listen to it, you will be a pro ready to attend the next Comic-Con. You'll find the bonus episode with Aaron at www.patreon.com/SBP Podcast. See you there.